All right, welcome everyone to Stream Restoration and Mitigation Principles. My name is Chris Stone. I'm the Director of Boone County Arboretum, and we are here today with Brandon Helm. He's with the Northern Kentucky University Environmental Restoration Center and has been working with us on a project on our property where we're looking at doing some stream mitigation work in various portions of our property. So I will turn it over to Brandon to let him introduce himself some more and tell everyone about what he does at NKU.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the opportunity to come on here and show folks that are interested in stream restoration, might want to learn more about it, what we do. So I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. This is a topic that, you can go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and get pretty in depth with some of these topics. But so this is, intended as somewhat of an overview of basic restoration practices, how we determine site selection, how we assess streams, and then based on that, get to construction and do the work that, fixes the problems. As Chris stated, we have a upcoming project at Central Park in Arboretum. I think I've got a map there that shows that project site. So, I'll discuss that a little bit as we go along. So I'll just go ahead and get started here. Our first photo here is another Boone County park. We've done quite a number of projects in Boone County in the Northern Kentucky region. But particularly Boone County. So this is Moonwoods Park, and I'll get into more detail on this, but just a little shot of some of the work that we've done there. This was this picture was taken shortly after the work was completed. It looks much different now if any of you ever go over there. It's a very heavily forested stream area now, so we're pretty happy. It's one of our best projects to date, so we're very proud of it. But I'll get into more of that in a few. So first off, I assume everybody kind of knows what a stream is, but just to to define it a little more, it's a body of flowing water basically that is confined within the bed and banks of a channel. Streams are controlled by three major inputs: surface water, rain and surface runoff, subsurface water, and groundwater. And they consist of three major components: riffles, which are your shallow, fast water, exposed rock; runs, which is kind of a transition between a shallow area and the deeper pools. That's your third component, where water slows down. In Northern Kentucky, we have all three flow types. That's certainly a consideration we look at when doing this work. A perennial stream is classified as a stream that always holds flowing water year-round. Intermittent streams go dry possibly at some point in the year, but they have long periods of flow. And ephemeral streams only flow during rain events or for within about 48 hours afterwards. So that brings us to what is stream restoration exactly. So we refer to it as work conducted to improve the health of a river or stream system in order to support the ecology, to conserve soil, for aesthetics and recreation and flood management. So the two major things when we get into a project, the actual work that we're working on physically are to stabilize the banks and the channel itself. So from that aspect, we're looking at sediment control and conserving soil from reducing erosion. And then of course, we're concerned with stream ecology. Of course, we like all the critters that live in the streams. I was one of those kids that couldn't stay out of the creek down in the woods behind my house, and that's kind of rolled over into my adulthood, and I think we all loved doing that. So this allows me to continue that. And the other thing that we do a lot of focus on is the riparian zone. So a riparian zone is that interface between the aquatic habitat and the land habitat. So that vegetated area along the stream banks, usually for about, anywhere from 10, immediately at water's edge to, 50 to 100 feet from the edge, can be considered that. Other things that we look at when evaluating streams for a project are, the watershed, that area that all the rain that falls in that area that flows into that stream, that entire area. What's going on in that watershed? Is it highly developed? Is there subdivisions? Are there parking lots? Does that exacerbate runoff, or is it forested? So those are considerations. Typically, we're using all natural materials when doing this kind of work. We kind of follow a philosophy called natural stream design, where we're reverting an impacted channel that's got issues. We're trying to recreate a natural channel that will evolve and continue to change, but within a certain range of being stable. We want it to reach an equilibrium where it'll persist forever and just become a natural channel all over again. And so how we do that, it kind of depends on the initial quality of a stream. There's quite a wide range that we come across, and based on whether the stream is poor quality or excellent quality, there's several tiers of work that we can do, ranging from what we refer to as reestablishment, and rehabilitation is sort of the next level down, enhancement, and then preservation for an already good stream. And I'll break down each of those categories in more detail as we go. And like I mentioned, we have to determine a stream quality. It's basically the first thing we do if we are scouting out a site for a potential project. And so I'll go through how we do that. We have to do an on-site assessment. And what we use is a system called the Rapid Bioassessment Protocol, which was developed by the US EPA. And basically, it's a way to look at streams and judge them based on 10 criteria. And then you score each one, and get a maximum score of 200. And then there's a range for each quality. So what we look at are of these criteria are the substrate as it concerns animals, the ecology. So epifaunal substrate. We're looking at the rocks, the logs, root wads, anything that macroinvertebrates, amphibians, fish, all that stuff. It's places for it to live. What's the quality of that? What's the frequency of that stuff in the channel that we're looking at? Embeddedness is the next criteria. That's looking at sediment surrounding the substrate that's in the stream channel. Velocity and depth regime, that pertains to the speed and depth of water, whether it's fast and shallow flowing, deep, slow. There's several of those combinations. So the higher number of types, fast, shallow, fast, deep, etc., the better. You want a wide range of those. Sediment deposition, that is looking at how much sediment is being transported through the stream system. Any healthy stream that's in equilibrium is going to have a certain amount of sediment in it. But ideally, there's a balance. The amount coming into the stream from the banks and upstream is roughly equal to the amount exiting the stream. When that gets out of balance, you have either an accumulation of sediment or a degradation of sediment. You're losing sediment and it's eroding fast. So you want a good balance of that. So that's something that gets judged. Channel flow status refers to the amount of the channel, the width of the channel that actually is holding water. Whether it's you're basically measuring a percentage of the channel width. We look at channel alteration, which is human impacts. So if there's been dredging, if there's bridge abutments, gabion baskets, holding back a bank, concrete banks, channelization. That's a big issue in this area. Is old farms have diverted channels, push them off to one side in order to increase the amount of arable land that they can plow and grow crops. So that's something that we deal with quite a bit. We look at frequency of riffles or bends. Bank stability is a major component of this. We grade each bank separately because sometimes the left side might be nice and stable. The right side is crumbling and eroded. And it takes into account vegetative protection, tree coverage, preferably there's mature trees along the stream. And we also judge riparian zone width. There's a way to grade that based on the distance that the forest cover from the edge of water goes. And so this is what that sheet looks like. It gets pretty detailed. Each of those criteria gets broken down into subcategories, whether it's optimal, suboptimal, marginal, or poor. So you can break down each one of those components in pretty good detail, and you come up with a score for each one, and you accumulate that score, and that gives you these ranges of whether it falls into an excellent category, average category, or poor category. I will say the RBP I noted here is it's not the most perfect tool for doing these small headwater streams that we typically work in. It was calibrated more for perennial streams that could be weighted, larger watersheds. I think 5 square mile watersheds are larger, but it's the best tool available, and it's required by the Army Corps, which is the overseeing agency of the mitigation program. So once we do a RBP scoring for a channel, we'll score all the streams at a site that we're looking to work on. We will, give them a grade, and based on that, we can kind of correlate that score or that quality range to the type of work that's going to be required. So as an example here, like we mentioned to kick off, we have an upcoming project at Central Park and Arboretum. This is our site map of the area that we're going to be working on. So the red lines here that you see are streams that graded poor for one reason or another. Not necessarily the vegetation scoring or riparian zone width. All these streams have a nice buffer along them, but when you get into the bank stability and the sediment, that's where we have issues. A lot of these channels have steep eroded banks. Up at the northern end of the park, though, the stream was higher quality, so we have one little area of excellent quality and an area of average. So that'll require a lighter touch or just preserving that area. Just as another example, we have a large project site in Mason County, right adjacent to Maysville. This is a 1,500 acre site. And as you can see, a lot of the smaller ephemeral headwater streams scored excellent, as noted by the green. And then as you go downstream, they kind of degrade and the score's lower. So that's how we kind of generally come up with an idea of what we're getting into, the type of work that is going to be involved. Another way that helps us classify streams is referred to as the Roskin stream classification system. This was developed by a professor. I forget offhand what university he was at then and where he's at now, but he's still teaching. David Roskin. He came up with this way to classify streams based on the slope, the gradient, and the substrate. So the morphology of the stream, they generally fall into these categories. What I've got highlighted here on the screen in green are typically what we find in Northern Kentucky, the A, B, and C channels. We also get into the lower end of the scale. The F and G channels are the degraded streams. So with the steep eroded banks, we call them incised or gullies, and kind of based on the gradient. Then the lower part of the table there categorizes the substrate, whether the stream channel is composed of boulders, cobble, sand, gravel. So it's a useful tool for us to categorize things. This is just a little example of applying that towards a watershed that we're actually presently working on. This is a map of our project site at Big Bone Lick State Park. It's actually an adjacent property that we acquired and have donated to the park. So eventually we will be expanding the park by about 190 acres. So when this project work is all done, hopefully they'll be opening that to the public and will provide some extra hiking opportunities. But as you see, those what we have here, the A channels are typically your headwater streams high up in the watershed. They're steep and narrow. The B channels are where it kind of gradually, starts reducing gradient, and then C is where you start to flatten out, and that channel can start to meander back and forth. So as you see here, the highlights in pink are the A channels, the high headwater streams. Those converge, flow into a B type channel, and then that eventually drops down into the valley and becomes a C channel. So based on that criteria, we can develop a plan for the design of the channel, whether it meanders back and forth slowly or stays, basically in the confines of the valley. So now I'll get back to those categories of, kind of the tiers of level of effort that we use to do our work. Where a stream possibly doesn't even currently exist, or it's been culverted, it's flowing through a pipe underground. That's what we refer to as reestablishment. We're reestablishing a stream channel. So this is the most heavily involved type of restoration. We're building a stream from scratch for the most part. So we're excavating a new channel where the original was diverted elsewhere. It was straightened. We're going to add meanders back to it. So this is where we bring in the heavy equipment, the excavators and loaders. We'll excavate out a channel, grade the banks, build structures as we go, and then reconnect that to the flowing channel and get water going through it. Like I said, in the low gradient areas, the C channel type areas, we'll build big bends and curves into it, which adds length to a channel, so that increases the amount of water that stream can carry at a given time. So it slows the water down. That aids in abating, flooding, and it also just increases more available habitat for wildlife. So think this was the same stream as the first picture at the beginning of the presentation. This is Moonwoods Park. This is an example of a reestablishment channel that we constructed from scratch. Some disc golfers were a little upset with us that we, infringed on their disc golf course, but we kind of ate into that area a little bit. The stream here had originally been straightened and was in pretty rough shape. The banks were collapsing. There was basically no good quality habitat for fish or invertebrates or amphibians. So we excavated a channel, stabilized the banks, created some new floodplain areas for high water to spread out on during high flow periods, and then reconnected it to the existing stream. So this is a satellite view of that area post completion, probably a couple of years after completion. So you can see all the bends that we put in, as well as a wetland basin kind of in the middle there. Is another example of a reestablished channel. This is at our Kingsolver restoration site in Nicholas County, which is about 30 miles south of Maysville. But just some detail as to what the channel looks like up close when it's done. This is a riffle section flowing down into a pool, and we alternate those riffles and pools to slow the water down and provide habitat. Split rock. This was an interesting one. So this is in Boone County. This was a site where a developer tried to create a marina down near the river, excavated out a big basin on a creek that connected to the Ohio River, and filled in a valley with all the excavated soil. And lo and behold, he buried a stream. Well, that water didn't stop, and it eventually cut this canyon through the middle of it. So we didn't follow that path. We cut a new channel through that, kind of unconsolidated material. And the bottom picture, it's hard to see the stream, but there's rock and it's vegetated. We were able to grade those, cut a new channel, grade those banks back, and get some vegetation growing on it again, and add substrate rock to it, as where there previously was nothing. That was one of the most heavily involved kind of projects that we've had to date. But it was a pretty dramatic rift through there. It was about 20 feet deep. Was that gully? So the next tier down from reestablishment we have is rehabilitation. This is, again, pretty involved work involving heavy machinery, but this is where we're not altering, we're not building a new channel. We're not altering the location of a channel. We're working within the confines of the existing channel. So something like that split rock, maybe not to that level, but an incised or gullied channel, we will regrade the banks. We'll add structures. We'll add rock substrate. So some of the structures that we will put into a rehabilitation channel and a reestablishment channel are cross veins, deflectors, and other grade control structures. So these are typically like boulder or wood structures. This is again at Moonwoods Park. This was another tributary of the main stream that flows through there. This is just behind the amphitheater for everybody who's familiar with that place. We built a couple of rock and boulder cross veins. So that stabilizes the channel, keeps the sediment from washing away and cutting upstream, and creates a pool just below for fish and other animals. This is on that same channel there at Moonwoods. These are boulder deflectors. This was a spot where the current was cutting into this steep bank on the left, as you can tell by all the exposed tree roots. So those boulders deflect the current back out towards the middle of the channel and allow for sediment to drop out behind them. So if you see in between the big boulder sections, there's fine sediment that's dropped out in between. So you want that to accumulate there and kind of restore the bank. That shows us that those are working. And eventually, I think vegetation is able to colonize that and then further stabilize the bank. And these are more simple grade control structures, just some large rocks and boulders placed across. This is again at Moonwoods on the southern tributary. And occasionally we utilize wood for grade control. This is at Moonwoods again. You can only use wood structures in perennial streams. As long as wood is always saturated, it takes forever and ever to rot. So this is still there. This was placed, it says 2016. It's solid as ever right now, 5 years later. So in this case, we cut into the bank on either side. This was a tree that we had to cut down for one reason or another and wanted to utilize it rather than just wasting it. So we thought it would be best spent as a structure. And so in those areas where we've regraded the banks, and we'll place new rock substrate, where there typically isn't much, or so we're enhancing that. This is at the Big Bone Lick State Park site, up on that upper tributary as it went up into the valley. So this is where we're working in the stream channel, regrading the banks and spots, adding this rock to the channel and to the banks. This was done. We tried to do a lot of the work in the late summer and fall. This was October, so typically pretty dry. This is an intermittent stream, so we didn't have to worry about too much water flow. So it's easier to get the equipment in and out. So this is during the work, and then a few weeks later, that's what it looks like. So we try to keep a light touch. We want to keep as many trees and all the native vegetation intact as best we can, because then your end product is much nicer and more stable. And another picture of the same channel after all the leaf drop kind of gets washed out, so you can see what's going on there a little better. We're continually working on this channel. We're upstream from there, actually working on it right now, but getting close. So enhancement is our third tier of work. It's again a lighter touch. There might be some small repairs involved, some rocks placed in sore spots where there's some erosion going on. But a lot of the time it is purely vegetation based. We're enhancing the riparian zone. A big issue that we have is people mowing right to the edge of a stream and then wondering why the bank is failing, and it's because there's no trees or anything holding it together. So we encourage no mowing zones, widening that riparian zone, planting trees. One of our favorite techniques is live staking, and we do that on any channel that we have. That's where you can take a cutting from willows, cottonwoods, certain dogwood species, buttonbush. There's a group of species that you can cut a stem or trunk, branches, and hammer that into the bank. As long as it gets enough water and sun, it will resprout and grow a new tree from that. So you can take one tree and turn it into 20. So that's a really successful technique for us. We do that a lot in enhancement areas. Then, of course, invasive vegetation control in these areas. It improves the health of the native plants that we want. because you don't want a monoculture of honeysuckle or multiflora rose or anything like that taken over, because then that will inhibit, good vegetation to grow and hold those banks together. Some other things that we can do in this enhancement category is just improving the general watershed hydrology. Mostly we do that by building water bars on trails. The site near Maysville that we have was a former ATV park, off-road park. So the MO for people there was to drive their ATVs and four-wheelers around and destroy about anything they could. So what had happened there was all these trails that zigzagged across the property were kind of hijacking the surface flow, as it were. During rain events, the rain would hit, flow down the hillside, and instead of flowing into a stream channel, it would get hijacked by these trails, and then the trails kind of became de facto streams. So the streams themselves were getting a reduction of water, and then also getting this influx of excess sediment from these trails because they were eroding. So it was a mess. So closing those trails, building water bars which divert water from running down a trail and get it back onto the hillside, where it can flow as like a sheet until it gets into a stream channel. So that's very beneficial. And then again, of course, revegetating, tree planting, that's really important to us. So Moonwoods, yet again, this is a little channel that flows north kind of from the area of the amphitheater. At the time of our project initiation, it was being mowed all throughout. There were obviously some nice mature trees in there, but what we did was establish a no mowing zone through there and planted, additional tree and shrub species, seeded it with native wildflowers and grasses. It's come back real nice. It's sort of unrecognizable from this now. I don't have a good picture of the after, unfortunately. So yeah, I touched on native vegetation. That's sort of almost half of the equation for us. The in-channel work is obviously important, but once you do that and you have your engineering sound, you have to protect it. And vegetation is the way to do that. So this plant on the left of the screen is river cane. It's like a native bamboo. We love that stuff. It used to be in huge patches called cane breaks in Kentucky. It's a really unique habitat. A lot of species evolved with it and relied on it. So a lot of things have, kind of been extirpated or gone extinct, without it. So we try to transplant that at all of our sites. Sort of a hallmark of one of our project sites is you see that stuff. We plant tree seedlings wherever we can. We've been fortunate enough to get involved with the Reforest Northern Kentucky volunteer tree planting event that happens every spring, typically. I think it's scheduled for this fall now because of COVID. But this photo was during that event at our Big Bone site at a perennial stream channel that we had already completed. And this is a photo at that Kingsolver site of our student crew doing live stakes. And I'm sure that was earlier this spring. I haven't seen them yet, but I'm sure they're hopefully growing and happy. And then the last way we help streams out is just basic preservation. So where we have stream channels that are healthy, stable, good riparian zone, we don't touch it. So we get a certain amount of credit for preserving streams. So with that, I will kind of explain our program and how it works, the mitigation aspect of things. So what enables us to do all that cool work and, be outside and work in these, nice parks and wild areas is this mitigation program in the state of Kentucky. So I'm with the Center for Environmental Restoration, and basically we're like the contractor for this Northern Kentucky Stream Restoration Program. So myself, our college students, interns, we get out there and do the work on behalf of this mitigation program. So the idea behind it is, to protect, restore, preserve the streams, their riparian zones, sometimes wetlands. Basically, that is to compensate for development losses, where, a Walmart, Amazon is a big thing going on in Boone County right now. All that land that they have impacted and developed, they have to pay into this mitigation fund to offset their impacts. So the idea behind that is to, be able to pass on, a good environment to the next generation, while, not inhibiting economic development. As I mentioned before, there's a group of federal and state agencies that oversee this. The lead agency is the Army Corps of Engineers out of Louisville. But the other agencies that have some input into this, approving projects, making decisions that affect the programs are the Kentucky Division of Water, US EPA, and US Fish and Wildlife. So they work together on what's called the Interagency Review Team. We refer to it as the IRT. So they will frequently come out to our sites to inspect them, make sure what we're doing is up to par. So regarding mitigation, the general idea of a mitigation is to offset an impact. That can be done 3 different ways. A mitigation bank, that's where a group sells these mitigation credits. Mitigation, it's all about a crediting system. The developers have to pay, buy the credits. The mitigation providers like us create the credits for sale. So a mitigation bank is where all the work is done in one central location, one property, and they, create as many credits as they can there. The credits are based on stream length or, linear footage or acreage if it is wetlands. An in lieu fee program, that's what we run. That basically means that we can do the work on properties at no cost to the property owner. And that's what in lieu fee means. So whether it's a public entity like Boone County Parks, or a municipality, on down to private landowners, we can, if we identify a good project on their property and they're willing to work with us, we can do the site work at no cost to the landowner. Then there's also permittee responsible. That's where the developer, does their own work. They keep it all in-house. I don't hear about much of that going on. I think they would rather just buy the credits and keep doing what they're doing. So there's 2 in lieu fee program providers in the state of Kentucky. That's us and Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. They operate a program, doing the same kind of stuff that we do, but across the entire state. So the way the developers, determine how much they have to pay, they have to get permits in order to fill in streams. So the Army Corps inspects what they're doing. They determine how much mitigation is required. and then, kind of advise them onto which option is best for them. They can, negotiate with the cores, to conduct mitigation, one of the three ways. But up to date, most of it's done by the fee programs. There is a Northern Kentucky wetland mitigation bank, but I think it's sold all of its credits. So they've done all the work they can there, and basically they're done. It's tough to find suitable properties for that kind of thing, especially wetland properties in Kentucky. Those are rare. This is just a map. It breaks down the different geographic areas into service areas. Northern Kentucky in light blue. So those counties are our service areas that we cover. With some exceptions, like I said, we have a project in Nicholas County, which is in that yellow lower Licking River area. But everything else is covered by Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. They've got a pretty robust program. They cover the entire state. And they have actually been allowed recently to start finding projects in our area. We used to have a bit of a monopoly on Northern Kentucky, but the Amazon development by the airport kind of is forced the core, the IRT to allow them to expand into our area because that project is requiring so many credits. It's more than we can handle. We're a relatively small outfit here. We have 4 staff members and then, in general, 10 to 12 student interns. So we're unable to meet the demand of Amazon. One caveat to our projects, if somebody approaches us with a prospective project site, whether it's a public park or a private property, the requirement from our end is that the area is permanently protected. So what we do is place that on with a conservation easement, which prohibits any future development, because we don't want to do a stream project and then 10 years, 20 years down the road, that property gets sold and somebody bulldozes it all and puts up a subdivision or something. So we do the conservation easements or deed restriction. That happens more often with like state land or land that we have purchased and donated to the state. We've created a few wildlife management areas recently by land that we purchased and then transferred to the state. The conservation easements do allow for certain allowances, to build a road crossing, perhaps selective timber harvest, trails. That's just something that we work out with the property owner. And then any project has to involve a conservancy partner to hold that conservation easement. It has to be held by a third party. Otherwise, there's kind of a conflict of interest. And another requirement of the easement is that those get inspected annually to ensure that nobody's encroaching, which can be something as simple as mowing where they shouldn't, or cutting down trees, building a house or something. So and then all these easements have to be supported by an endowment to require that that oversight can persist in perpetuity. So that's not just going to fall off and 50 years down the road somebody can come in and undo all the work that we did. So our specific program, the entity that holds our easements is the NKU Research Foundation. So it's a partnership between them and the Center for Environmental Restoration. The foundation, they hold the easements. They also are responsible for the mitigation credit sales to the developers. They kind of manage the flow of funding and then disperse it to us to fund our budget, budget our projects. So like I had said earlier, the center here, we're sort of the contractor, for lack of a better term, for this program. So we do the majority of the work in-house. We identify the projects. We do a lot of the design. We do the permitting, which is, an arduous process. We do the construction. Post-construction, we are required to do monitoring, where we make sure that the work is holding up. A requirement from the Army Corps is that we monitor projects for 5 years after completion of the construction. And then we ensure that the project meets all their success criteria, and then it's considered closed by the Corps, and those credits that we developed can be sold. So we do that work, and then kind of our other main thing that we do is we're a student enrichment program. So we hire NKU students to do this work. We provide them with real work opportunities to get out there and do it. A lot of, I've always heard about, how college students, they graduate and then they try to get an entry-level job that is asking them for, 2 years of experience, so this actually provides them with that. I myself personally, I'm an NKU grad, and I worked here at the center, 10, 12 years ago, doing this stuff. So it helped me immensely. So that's a big thing. We kind of are a twofold entity. We provide this experience for students, a way to apply their education. But then we actually, get all this stuff done and build these credits. So we do the credit estimation that these projects are going to create. And then we also, set a price for that based on, costs. As far as determining projects, we have criteria that we try to meet. So we're often looking for, larger scale projects, larger in the sense of it's a complete watershed. There's multiple streams that can be worked on. There's kind of a minimum number of credits that we need to generate in order to justify initiating a project. And so project designs are, they're designed to meet the performance standards determined by the Corps. And basically what that means is that, we're taking these low quality streams, we've done the RBP scoring, and we are trying to improve that. We want an uplift in quality. That's kind of the name of the game. We want the end product to be excellent quality, excellent quality streams and habitat. We want somebody to come back 10 years later, do an RBP assessment, and it grade as excellent. So that's the end goal. And we want to do it with, native plants and, best management practices. I've mentioned the IRT. So those are all the agencies that approve our stuff. And they, of course, audit things annually. They're very involved. So there's no fooling them. There's no way to fake this stuff. Here's a map of the impact sites in our service area. So these are the sites that a developer has impacted and paid into the bought credits for. As you can see, as you get into the urban footprint of Greater Cincinnati, that greatly increases. And you can kind of follow I-75 south down through Grant County. You can see those. The large gray dots are older projects previous to, I forget, 2012, I think. The black dots are after that. And the red dot was a large impact site from a utility company. So one of the ideas behind mitigation is to provide that offset as close to the impact as possible. So that's why a lot of our work, as you can tell, the impacts are in the northern 3 counties for the most part. And so we try to keep our projects in that region as well. So we're always trying to locate projects in the same watershed, at least if possible, to where those impacts are. So these are where all of our project sites are. Just some other stats about the program. Roughly, and these numbers may be a little bit old, but $33 million has come into to our program to offset 66 land development sites. We've completed about 26 projects to date. We have 4 that are currently either under construction, like Big Bone is one. The one in Maysville is under construction. Got a couple others that are in the works, including Central Park. And then we have 2 more that are kind of in the design, the early permitting phase. And then, of course, it's all about the ecological benefits from our standpoint. We've preserved over 4,200 acres. Some of these more recent sites that we've developed are, pretty large scale, on the order of 1,000 acres or more, with a couple of them being pretty large. We've protected or restored over 81 miles of streams, and we've created 20 acres of wetlands. And then, the flip side of that is our student enrichment program, where, we've provided, close to 80,000 hours of real work experience and training for about 140 NKU students in the last 20 plus years. And we try to source local materials, use local businesses as much as we can. And we try to work with local municipalities, schools, parks, conservancies, all of those. We try to be part of the community in Northern Kentucky and help each other out as much as we can. So well, this is just a kind of a general quick overview of how we implement a project. Like I said, we're always kind of looking for sites in these areas of where the impacts are. This just kind of gives you an idea of the time scale involved. So once we identify a site, we'll do a site walk. We'll look at the selection criteria. So starting at that point, we'll go into negotiations with the landowner, work out the conservation easement, how the site will be protected, whether we're purchasing the property or a portion of it. So that can take a number of years. Sometimes some landowners they want to do it, but they drag their feet, so it can get pretty drawn out. We develop a concept plan, which sort of outlines our ideas for the project. Generally the type of work we would do. That's where those RVPs come into play. So that gives us an idea of what we will be doing. And we submit that to the IRT for their review. And based on that, and they conduct a site visit, they approve or deny the project. So once we can get approval at that stage, then we can get more into the weeds with it and get more detailed. We will develop a mitigation plan, and that's where we really outline the specifics of the work we do in the stream channels, and that's down to how many individual structures we'll be building, how many trees we'll be planting, where all this is going to occur. So we have to include a design. We have to have the easement or deed restriction in place by then. We have to go through several other permitting requirements involving threatened and endangered wildlife with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We have to have archaeological surveys done and to ensure that we're not disturbing historical sites. Down at Big Bone Lake, that of course is a major factor with all the kind of cool history going on down there. So once we get approval of the mitigation plan, we submit permit applications to the Division of Water, to the Corps, all the other agencies that might be involved in that property. We might use a contractor for some of the larger scale construction, specific things, but we try to keep it in-house as much as possible to give our students a good experience. So all that permitting, mitigation plan, permitting, that that can take a couple years. It's a long process. We do mapping. We create GIS maps. We collect GPS data. We incorporate all of that. So it takes a while. When we finally get to construction, that can take from a few weeks up to several years. Big Bone, that's going on the order of several years. Then we get into the maintenance and monitoring period, where we have to make sure that we're meeting all those criteria. And then once we get a final approval from the Corps, it will go into closure, and they release those credits to the developers. So I think I'll skip over that and get to, because I know I've been talking for a while. So just wanted to show some examples of our projects, cool before and after kind of demonstrations to close out here. So this was that stream reestablishment at Moonwoods. The photo in the top left was the original channel, not very attractive to people or wildlife. They were mowing right up to the edge. The banks were deteriorating, lots of sediment. It was not good quality habitat. So that's where we created new sections of channel. We stopped mowing in there, planted all kinds of trees and shrubs, native plants, herbaceous things. Now it's it's unrecognizable from that initial photo. This was a farm that we worked with NRCS, the kind of a farm focused group that helps with agricultural issues. This place needed to confine their cows, and the streams were impacted. They had an old pond that the dam had blown out, so we regraded out the pond channel and reestablished native plants, and recreated a stream through the old pond location. This is more in the urban footprint. This is a condo complex close to NKU here. Again, they were mowing right down to the channels. So we created a riparian area, regraded the banks, added substrate, protected the banks. Much improved. This is at that same place. They had a large, really high eroded bank. We regraded and revegetated. Built bank deflectors to deflect that flow back into the center of the channel to keep it from eating into the bank. This is a Dare Wildlife Management Area in Boone County, another public place. That's pretty nice. We created habitat for wildlife, created new stream meanders through there, repaired head cuts. That's where a channel has got severe erosion that travels linearly up the stream channel. Starts at a lower elevation and travels up and continually eats away and erodes. So building the rock wall basically will prevent that. Split rock again, just some, shows kind of the level of effort that took, using big equipment, regrading all this soil out and creating, gentle banks that will allow plants to grow. More at a Dare, creating new channel reestablishment. Joe's Creek was a site in Campbell County here, close to campus, in Southgate. It was the site of a former construction debris landfill. We were able to create there was a stream that flowed through there originally. We daylighted the stream. We're able to bring the flow back up to the surface and make it a natural setting again. Florence World of Golf. There had previously been a lake along the golf course. The dam was starting to fail. There was some major concerns from the city of Florence about it. So we had the dam removed and reestablished a channel through the former lake bed. This was similar to the type of channel that we constructed at Moonwoods. And this is Moonwoods again. We can't get enough of Moonwoods. We really like that place. We also create some stormwater wetlands where possible. Burlington Elementary, we did one. These stormwater retentions. We want to create some useful wildlife habitat out of those. They've been pretty nice. And that's just some examples of our students, getting dirty, doing the work. So that's what I got. If I'm happy to answer some questions if anybody has them. You can look us up on NKU's website if you're wanting any further information. So yeah, any questions out there for me? If not, I certainly encourage you guys to get out to some of these parks, Boone Woods, Big Bone Lick. There's lots of them out there that we've done some work. St. Anne's Wetlands down in Melbourne, Kentucky, in Campbell County. That's one we're working on right now. So yeah, get out there and check it out.
So Brandon, we've got a few questions.
Yeah.
We don't have too much time today. Unfortunately, we've got another Zoom that starts at 2:30 with staff interviews. But
okay, yeah, sorry, I can prattle on about this stuff all day.
Are the 10 criteria weighted evenly? That was a question from Chris Cave early on.
Yes. So each category is basically worth 20 points. So you have 10 criteria for a total of 20 points. So the total maximum score in the RBP is 200. I would love to see a stream that scored 200 because that would be heaven. The people I've talked to at the Army Corps, the highest that they've ever scored at what they call a reference reach, they'll go to these excellent quality places and do the scoring to set a reference for what they're doing. The highest that they've ever seen, I think, was a 191. So yeah, so each of those categories is out of 20, and then you add it all up and get your score.
Okay, we had a question from Mary Ann Rosem, asking, is River Cane native in Cincinnati?
Sorry, you cut off. Is it native in Cincinnati?
Yes.
Yes, it is native. This is sort of the northern edge of its range, northern Kentucky, southeast and southwest, or southeast Indiana, southwest Ohio. But yeah, it is native. We love it. It's great stuff. It provides good habitat. It grows in kind of a wide range of terrain. It will grow kind of in riparian areas on up to hilltops. It likes well-drained soil, so it won't grow in like a wetland, where it's always saturated. But it's a cool plant.
All right. We also have a statement just from Chris Caife. Adair, I put blood, sweat, and tears into that one. Brutal drought.
Yeah, I know he did. He loves Adair, I know.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to see river cane growing, we have a big patch of it out at the Arboretum. We actually have 2 patches of it.
Yeah.
But one of our huge areas is right along the creek off the loop trail, and it's massive. You can't miss that one. So if anyone wants to see it.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's what it does. And we're trying to encourage it to return to its former glory. I guess in the past, pre-European settlement, it would form these thickets, called a canebrake, that would cover acres and acres, impenetrable kind of stuff. So yeah, we've got several good sized patches of it going at Moonwoods as well.
Very good. We had one that just popped up from Tyler Rankin. What advice do you have for someone wanting to get involved in stream restoration programs in Northern Kentucky?
Well, if you're a NKU student, look us up and apply with us. We hire new students every semester. Otherwise, yeah, that's a good question. Volunteer, look for volunteer opportunities. I know Boone County's got some internships with their kind of parks department, but they've kind of created a conservation sort of based department with parks. So I know they do some of that kind of stuff. There's an organization in Cincinnati, Greenworks, that hires younger people to get out and do this kind of conservation work. Or there's there are private consultants that do this type of work. I know RES is one that we work with sometimes. They do a lot of the planning, design work. They have biologists on staff, and Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. They have a stream program, the Stream Team. So otherwise, yeah, I'm happy to try to help. You can email me. My email is helm HELMB 1 at nku.edu. So I don't know if you have a way to share that or anything, Chris. But
yeah, you can type that in the chat if you want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So another question popped up from Nicole Kometz, who actually is with our staff on the Arboretum on Wheels program. Will any of your work at Big Bone State Park include fixing the dam? It has been leaking for years and closed for public use. Would love to see it reopened.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody's approached us about that yet. It might involve removing the dam. Any work that we would do would probably be involving eliminating the lake, and restoring the stream channels in that valley. I know we did some work on that outlet channel that flows down from the lake, but I don't see us doing anything to fix the dam, if that was the question.
Yeah, I think that was
we're more in the business of removing dams.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We had a question about, does river cane spread aggressively? Is it difficult to control?
It does spread. It's not nearly as aggressive as like non-native bamboo. It does spread in a similar manner through rhizomes underground. So like a patch of it could be just one plant, basically. But it is slower to spread. We have patches of it that we put in at Moonwoods that I actually planted personally, that started as about, maybe a square, half a square meter, and there may be now 2 or 3 square meters, so it's kind of a slow and steady spread. So not too difficult to inhibit, spreading. If you were to put some in your yard, it's not going to take over. But it will spread.
So with us, we try to keep, if we don't have it next to a creek or a stream bank, we're trying to keep from eroding. We have it mowed around. So we try to keep it, I think if you keep 50 to 60 feet of mowed lawn or something like that, if you have it in a lawn, if you do that, that should keep it in bounds too, I think.
Yeah. Mowing it would.
Yeah, and otherwise just use like we said, a stream or some sort of a body of water that'll keep it in check too. That's another way to keep it in bounds. I don't think there's any more questions. There's some links that Mary Ann Rosen posted for Groundworks.
Ohio River Valley. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. A couple of the guys involved with them are former student interns with us. So they do a great job of given, similar to our program, giving people experience in conservation work, and getting out there. We try to, build relationships with, keep our students in the loop, because everybody that works here goes off into the real world eventually, build relationships and, keep the ball rolling. I did just add my email to the chat. So if anybody's interested in some more information, feel free to email me.
All right. I think that's all the questions. We got a thank you from Dave Glade. And I also want to thank you today, Brandon.
Yeah.
Doing this for us. This is the first time we've ever had such a program. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, and hopefully we can actually get out, next time and look at the stuff in person.
Yeah. So for people who are still on, if you hang tight with us, maybe later on we'll have an in-person event out at our property here, and you can see some of the work they've done. Yeah.
See it in progress, even, because we'll be starting that up at Central Park possibly next year. Construction might begin there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank everyone for coming today. And thanks again, Brandon, for hosting this for us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Everyone have a good afternoon.